Hello, I'm Val Corbett and I teach contract law on the FE1 course at Lawschool.ie. What can I tell you about the contract law course? Well, contract law essentially involves the law of promises. In essence, the course is about identifying when a promise creates legally binding obligations, identifying what those obligations are, and identifying the circumstances when one is no longer legally bound by those obligations. To give you a flavour for the course, I just wanted to walk through one or two of the more bizarre cases that we'll be looking at in class. The first of these is Carlisle v. Carbolic Smoke Ball Company, which is probably the most famous contract law case of them all. In that case, the defendant advertised its new medicinal product, the smoke ball, which it promised, as you can see from the ad on your screen, to cure all sorts of ills, including influenza, coughs, hoarseness, throat deafness, sore eyes, and so forth. Powerful stuff. Such was their faith in their product, they also promised that anybody who purchased the smoke ball, used it as instructed, and still contracted such an illness, would be entitled to a reward of £100. As a mark of their sincerity, the defendants placed £1,000 on deposit, from which claims would be paid. Mrs. Carlisle purchased the product, used it as instructed, and nevertheless contracted influenza. Was the defendant's promise enforceable? The defendants argued that it should not, because it was not in the traditional form of an offer, was not seriously binding, and therefore not capable of acceptance. However, the plaintiff succeeded. The court decided that this was a unilateral offer made to the world at large, which could be accepted by anybody who satisfied the preconditions set out in the advertisement. Moreover, the court found that, objectively speaking, it was seriously intended. Why else did the defendants pay a deposit £1,000 into a separate bank account from which claims could be paid? The decision in Carlisle forms the basis of other decisions, such as that of Leonard v. PepsiCo, a 1993 US decision. This case shows how cases in contract law decided over 100 years ago, like the Carlisle case, can remain relevant as precedent in the modern day. In that case, the defendants introduced a club point scheme whereby customers could collect Pepsi points and purchase certain items like sunglasses for 100 points, leather jacket for 200 points, and so on. Get the idea. The promotion was advertised in a catalogue and a TV commercial, which showed a young high school student flying a Harrier jump jet to school with the byline, as you can see from your screen there, Harrier jump jet, 7 million Pepsi points. You can probably guess where this is going. The plaintiff, an enterprising business studies student, noted from the Pepsi catalogue that one could acquire Pepsi points by paying 10 cents each for them. The plaintiff raised over $700,000 from various investors and purchased the necessary 7 million Pepsi points and sent in a check to Pepsi looking for his Harrier jump jet, which normally retailed for approximately $30 million. Like Carlisle, the plaintiff argued that an offer had been made, which he had accepted, and he was therefore contractually entitled to the jet. Unfortunately for him, the District Court of New York disagreed. In particular, the court held that the advertisement was clearly meant to be humorous, and no reasonable person would believe that Pepsi intended to sell a Harrier jump jet worth over $30 million to a customer for $700,000. The last case I want to flag to you is that of Hawkins v. McGee, otherwise known as the hairy hand case. In this case, the plaintiff, who was 11 years old at the time, had the palm of his hand badly burned when he turned on a light in his home. The plaintiff's father was approached by a Dr. McGee, who wished to treat the plaintiff with pioneering skin graft technology, which he promised would remove the scarring. In fact, he promised that after the surgery, the plaintiff would have a 100% good hand. Unfortunately, the doctor chose to use skin from the plaintiff's chest as part of the skin graft procedure. As a result, the plaintiff's palm began growing thick hair. The plaintiff, not surprisingly, was not happy and sued for breach of contract. The question before the court was, what kind of damages should the plaintiff receive? The court held that the plaintiff should be entitled to damages for his defeated expectations. That is to say, he should receive damages to compensate him for the difference between what he was promised, a 100% good hand, and what he received, which was a hairy palm. I hope that gives you a flavour of my subject, contract law, and some of the ideas that we'll be discussing in class. During the course, we'll be examining the underlying principles and policies behind contract law rules to give you a better understanding of how the law operates. We will do so, however, with specific emphasis on past FE1 examination papers to enable us to identify patterns and to put these theories to the ultimate test to get you through the exam. I look forward to meeting you then.